そうだ。
How's it going, everybody? It's Young here, and welcome to Day 20 of the Final Fantasy XV Countdown Retrospective. Before we proceed, I highly recommend you check out Day 21, in which I shared news for 2014 all the way up to Tokyo Game Show 2014, where Square Enix showcased a brand new trailer of the highly anticipated title. In this video, I'll be sharing the rest of the major developments from the event, the ones that I didn't talk about in my previous video. There's a lot to talk about, so without further ado, let's dive right into it. Shortly after Square Enix released their new Final Fantasy XV trailer during TGS 2014 on September 17th, news that Tetsuya Nomura would no longer be directing the game quickly made the rounds throughout the internet. Here's the official statement that Square Enix CEO Yosuke Matsuda made about the matter according to website Kotaku. The move allows Tetsuya Nomura to focus his full efforts as the director of other highly anticipated titles, including Kingdom Hearts 3. In reviewing our development structure, we have decided to assign Hajime Tabata as the new director for Final Fantasy XV. Currently, Tabata and the entire development team are working wholeheartedly towards completing the production of Final Fantasy XV and ensuring the delivery of the highest quality Final Fantasy title to date. We invite every one of our fans to view the fruits of our labor through Final Fantasy XV's demo and promise to present a game that further surpasses expectations when the finished product is released. As the director of Final Fantasy XV, Tetsuya Nomura has mainly worked on the original concept for the story and universe in addition to creating the characters. Hereafter, he'll be focusing his efforts on the production of titles that can only be made possible by Nomura himself and delivering products that exceed the quality of past titles, starting with another one of his representative projects, Kingdom Hearts 3. Square Enix will continue to work on these titles with the best staff formation in an effort to deliver them to everyone as soon as possible and appreciates your continued support. Now, the CEO mentioned some kind of demo. This was referring to a playable demo of Final Fantasy XV that was being prepared for a 2015 release. The only catch was that only those who purchased the upcoming Final Fantasy Type 0 HD, set for a March 17, 2015 release date, would be able to get a voucher to download the demo. Further limiting the reach of this demo was that it turned out the demo would only be included in the first print Day 1 editions of Type 0 HD, although this wasn't known yet at the time. Regardless, people were just happy there was something tangible of the now 7 years old title coming their way. But the news that drew most attention was Tetsuya Nomura's departure from the project, whose position as game director was filled by Hajime Tabata. Naturally, media outlets immediately jumped at the opportunity to interview the new director, and this article, released on September 22, 2014 by website Gematsu, did a great job of breaking down and compiling all of the relevant information. Sources that this article used include interviews with Hajime Tabata by 4Gamer, Game Informer, Famitsu, and Kotaku. Now, instead of reading all this word for word, I'm going to paraphrase all this so we can get through this a lot faster. The first topic was development progress. At the time, Hajime Tabata said that the game was around 50 to 60% complete, and that those numbers only encompass the 2 years he's been involved with the project, so it's not like it took 7 years to get to 50 to 60%. At this stage, fundamental parts of the game's systems were more or less already implemented, and it was stated that once the Episode Duskaya demo is out, the game shouldn't take much longer to complete. He further ensured a steadfast pace for the game's development by establishing a set release date and working towards that goal. It was also mentioned that the team now works on stuff only after things have been really hashed out to avoid wasting time and resources. With the framework now solidly in place, Tabata said he doesn't expect any major scheduling shifts, with the end goal now in sight. Speaking of the team, Tabata said that the development staff is somewhere between 200 and 300 members. Despite Final Fantasy XV being a AAA title, Tabata mentioned he didn't want 1,000+ people working on this title like Western teams, as he'd rather have a smaller team with people who can make the most of their individual potential. The topic then shifted to Tetsuya Nomura's departure. It all began in July 2012, when Yoichi Wada, the then CEO of Square Enix, ordered the Type 0 team to join the 15 team in the game's development. It was around then that Versus 13 became 15 and moved to current generation consoles. So that's when Tabata became involved with the project, with his involvement being announced at E3 2013. As a result, Tabata felt as though his transition to becoming director wasn't all that sudden and that the project didn't suffer as a result. A lot of fundamentals for characters and world were in place during the transition, and Tabata consulted with Nomura, the team, and management to put Final Fantasy XV on track as best it could be. Tabata also mentioned he re-examined Final Fantasy XV's development structure, with one of the biggest changes being that he merged the gameplay, CG, and game engine teams so they would work together as one unit. Tabata also admitted that 15 is not the exact same game that Versus 13 used to be. The change in platform and director was a big influence, so a lot of things were re-evaluated. However, Tabata ensured that certain things that were important to Nomura, such as the character Noctis, were maintained as best as possible. Speaking of keeping things the same, Tabata stated that Noctis' party is still all male, which has been true since the Versus 13 days. He also noted that the road trip vibe was also a big part of Versus 13 that transitioned to 15. Tabata's personal concepts for the game are friendship and journey, and the game was designed to take advantage of both themes. While Noctis is the main character, Noctis' friends are also being treated as main characters of all scenes in the game. What did change from Versus 13 to 15 is that the game shifted from mostly CG cutscenes to a mix of CG and in-game cutscenes that are the same quality as pre-rendered. As an example, he noted how most of Final Fantasy XV's TGS 2014 trailer was in real time, with the exception of a few scenes like the one showing ships flying towards the city, or the one showing the female character Luna. As far as graphics go, Tabata said they're about 70% of what they're aiming for, and hopes to achieve 80% by the time Episode to Sky launches, with 100% by the time the game is fully finished. The next topic that the article covered was Noctis' car, which was highlighted quite a bit in the TGS 2014 trailer. Tabata said that despite the game being single-player, he wants you to feel that you're going across an entire continent with your companions in a car, as if they're real people. Players will be able to both manually drive the car or set it on autopilot. As for customization, it was stated that the car can't be modified in any way, but the team did look at games such as Need for Speed for the driving mechanics, which Tabata designed to feel real but fun at the same time. Tabata went as far as saying that the player should consider the car a member of the party, similarly to airships in previous Final Fantasy titles. Now, while players will mostly travel long distances by car, it's also possible to travel by foot, although that was not advised, as some places can be pretty far off. Walking is primarily for going into places you can't get to by car. This takes us straight into the topic of the open world, which he described to be completely free and open, allowing players to go where they want to explore. However, to maintain the dramatic and cinematic storytelling that is at the core of Final Fantasy, the game's openness was balanced to satisfy those who like traditional Final Fantasy epic storytelling. Tabata promised that the open world aspects will not come at the expense of character growth and plot progression. In other words, not literally everything is open world, but there are still vast open areas which players can freely explore. The world is fully explorable, but there is a specific path to go down for narrative progression. Tabata also noted that areas in the game are seamlessly connected, with little to no loading times to be found. Speaking of the open world, Tabata mentioned how weather patterns will change over time in the game, and will have a tactical impact on battle conditions, particularly where magic is concerned, with different magic having different effects depending on the weather. An example that was provided is that using fire magic on a sunny day may not only hurt monsters, but ignite the surrounding area, thereby hurting Noctis and crew, so weather and magic can be both to the player's benefit or detriment. The game also has a day and night cycle. Tabata specified that one in-game day is equivalent to 30 minutes in real time. He also presented a scenario in which defeating the giant adamantoise creature seen in the TGS 2014 trailer might take 30 in-game days to defeat, which is equivalent to 15 real-time hours. Tabata also mentioned how camping out at night would be a mechanic in the game, noting how characters who don't sleep will do worse in battle. Also, at the end of the day, accumulated experience points will be calculated to give players an idea of how much they've accomplished in that stretch of time. The last bit that Tabata added on the matter was that monsters who would be in dungeons during daylight will wander above ground during nighttime, further incentivizing players to camp out at night. Next up, the article dived into new information regarding combat, which for this game, he said that it's not about pressing a button once for a single action to happen, but more about the movements associated with the buttons and building upon them for actions through the combat system. It's more about continuous flow of movements. He also shared tidbits like how combat will feel very natural with mechanics such as holding down the attack button to create a string of interlinking attacks and holding down the defense button to guard against enemy attacks, both of which can be done while moving around. It was said that combat is less about focusing on menus and more about playing around and navigating 3D spaces, albeit with predetermined moves. So there are no menu commands in combat, and it controls more like an action game where players switch between offense and defense. Tabata also confirmed that you can only control Noctis, which was different from Nomura's plan to make all party members playable, but ensured that players can still issue orders to party members during battle. You can also bring up a menu screen to give everyone commands and to swap out weapons, etc. On the topic of weapons, Tabata described them as being set in a deck, with the deck choosing the most appropriate weapon on the battle situation. But as we know today, this system has received a major overhaul since, with the game now allowing players to switch weapons as they please, but that's a topic for later. Noctis can also teleport around the battlefield by throwing swords and getting it to stick in places, with existing conditions limiting how they can be used, conditions that can change depending on the battlefield. Tabata also shared some details about magic and how they can have various effects against enemies. For example, fire can make enemies run away from the heat. It was also noted that enemies will roam around the map and can be engaged seamlessly, so no transition into a battle screen or anything like that. The article then noted how Tabata mentioned wanting to make Final Fantasy XV so amazing that it will become a benchmark of the current video game hardware, and how he's striving to really impress people with this game, after which a summary of Episode du Sky was provided. According to Tabata, the demo, which was set to be included with copies of Type 0, was named after an area of the game called Tuscae, and he mentioned there is enough content in the demo to last players an hour if they just rush through the story, or up to 3 to 4 hours with exploration and dungeons. Because it is a demo, Tabata did mention that there would be limits to open world aspects, but he also said that it will still feature a wide-ranging area to explore, where players will be able to fight monsters, explore dungeons, visit towns, and get a general feel for the game's mechanics. The demo was even set to showcase the aforementioned weather mechanics and the day and night cycle. But the most important thing about the demo for Tabata was reassuring people that the game was well underway. The article finally concluded by sharing what Tabata said about possible future projects beyond 15. He talked about how he would be interested in making a sequel for Final Fantasy Type 0, and noted that if he were to helm another numbered Final Fantasy title, considering how far they came in 2 years, his opinion is that that game would be developed more quickly. Alright, so with all that out of the way, I would like to conclude this video by showing you Square Enix's in-game demonstration that they showcased during TGS 2014. This footage was first made public on September 20th, 2014, and it looks something like this.
で単なる開発バージョンを持ってきてもデバッグコマンドだらけで楽しくないので、ちょっとだけ皆さんに説明しやすいような内容にしてきました。
これムービーじゃないんですよね。
これムービーですよ。これムービーじゃないですよ。
マジ？
すいません。はい、ちょっとカメラ回してくれる？
おお。ちゃんと実機でしたね。嘘じゃなかったですね。
はい。今雨降ってますよ。この雨もちゃんとキャラクターがこう濡れてったりするんですね。他のキャラクターもどんどん見せてください。
あ、兄貴。
はい。グラディオ。ちょっと寄ってみたりして。はい。でちょっと次に行こう。はい。これはプロンプトですね。
ムードメーカーですね。
はい。ちなみに去年のプロンプトよりもちょっとねイメチェンしてるんですよね。髪型をちょっとだけ変更して あとねその基本の表情を多少変えてますね。
なるほど、
はい、男前になってるんじゃないかと思います。
はい、
はい、次は
イグニス。
これイグニスですね。テッカテカですね、服が。
濡れてんのにすごい澄ましてます、
そうですね。まあ晴れてても濡れてても今こいつこれしかないんですけどでもこんな感じで時間が流れたり天候が変化したりそういうのがこの世界の中では普通に起こるっていうのをちょっとお見せしたかったと。
はい、
で、まあ、ちょっと雨が降るとですね単に水がこう降ってるだけじゃなくて水たまりもできるんですよね。ちょっと水たまり見てください。よくできてるんで。
あ、カエル。
はい。カエルを見せたいわけではありません。カエルの近くの水たまりを
確かに水たまりありますよね。
そうそうそう。これは高低差をちゃんと見て、
あーすごいな、
はい、水ができるようになっていたり、まあ、ちょっと屋根があるところだとその下は濡れなかったりそういう風になるんですね。
なるほど、
はい、でこういうやっぱり生きた世界っていうのをなるべく実現しようと思って、今技術メンバーが鋭意制作中だったりしますね。
はい、
でちょっと晴れにしてくれる？今は手元で操作できるようにしちゃってますけど、これ本当は普通に雨が止んでしばらくすると乾いていくっていうのがもうちょっとゆっくり起こるんですね。
今高速なんですよね。
そうです。今すごい高速モードにしてます。はい。もう一回キャラクター見ましょうか。晴れたんで。
確かに服ももう濡れてないです、
濡れてないですね。微妙すぎて分かんないかもしれないですけど髪もね乾いてるんですよね今。
細かいな。
細かすぎて届かないですねそこ他のキャラも
確かに、
はい、
サラサラっとしましたね。
去年 E3 でお出しした、ゲームプレイのデモちょうど同じロケーションで都庁前でベヒーモスなんかと戦ったんですけど、あの時の環境よりもさらに進んで今現在ルミナスとですね当時 E3 の時に使っていたエボニーというふうに僕ら呼んでいる15のオリジナルの環境と統合して本番環境でゲームが動くようになってます。だから大きくこれから開発が進んでいくと思われます。どんどん進めて。
なるほど、
じゃあ実際動かそうかと思うので皆さんちょっと見ててください。
UI 出ましたね。
で、そうだね。ここの周りをちょっと見てもらおうか。回して。
すごいっすね。
ここはさっき言ったように昨年 E3 の時にベヒーモスと戦ってた場所ですね。はい、で今手元で時間も変えられるようにしてるんですね。本当はゲームの中でやっていくんですけど24時間どんどん変えてください。
暗くなってきました。
そうですね。自然にそのまま夜まで切り替わってでその後また朝が来ると。でそうやって時間がずっと流れ続ける世界で日が経過していくにつれ、旅が進んでいくっていう風になってます。
なるほど。
去年 E3 の、バトルのトレーラーにも夜のシーン入れたんですけどあの時は夜用にかなり何日か時間かけてチューニングしないと夜作れなかったんですが今は朝昼自然に世界の中で推移するようなところまで行っています。
はい、
じゃあちょっとバトルを見ていただきたいと思うので
ちょっと怖い。高い。
これ高いですね。こんな感じですね。上から見ると今ちなみにこれ大体ね70から 80% ぐらいのクオリティです。体験版をお届けするタイミングだともうちょっとクオリティ上がってると思いますね。
なるほど。
はい、こんな感じで
じゃあバトル行ってみましょうか。
はい。やっぱここで戦うんだったらこいつかなっていうのを今
ベヒーモス
呼んでますね。はい。
あれちっちゃいのはゴブリン。
これ今回一押しのゴブリンですゴブリン芸が細かいしキャッキャ笑ってたりして
ちょっとファイブチックなゴブリンですね。
そうですね。洞窟に入っていくとこいつ結構いるんですね。
今ずっと避けてますけどこれは
細かいゲームシステムの説明は今回ちょっと避けますけれどずっと防御のボタンを押し続けてるとああやって 回避をし続けてくれる、そういうシステムになってますね。
なるほど。
はい、攻撃も攻撃ボタンを押してるだけで勝手に攻撃してくれるんで、アクションなんですけどすごく簡単にいろんな技が出るようになっていて、
なんかこう去年の E3 の PV よりももっさりしたんじゃないかな意見もありましたけど、
らしいですね。もっさりしてません。ただ、さっきちょっと言いましたけど E3 の時はまだ別の仮の環境で開発してたんですよね。で仮の環境で1回一気に完成度を引き上げてこれくらいのゲームに仕上げようっていうのを決めたんです。そして今本番環境に移行している段階なのでまだ完全にモーションなんかも100% の状態に持っていけてない部分はあるので、これからどんどん良くなりますよ。
ちなみにもう時間の方がどんどんなくなってきているということなので、ベギーマスって倒せたりするんですか今。
これ倒せますかね。さっきからイグニスと協力攻撃したりしてると思うんですが、これも特別な操作は必要なくて近くにいる仲間とその時出せる連携技が自動でどんどん出てきます。はい、もうちょっと無理だね。
そうですね、ちょっと時
時
間がもう
ここ
足りない。
までしか無理みたいです。ごめんなさい。
あ、でも
お倒した。ギリ倒しましたね。はい、はい、
さあということで実機プレイだったのでどうもありがとうございました。
All in all, a pretty sweet demo. I believe this was the first time in Final Fantasy XV's development history that we got to see the game being played live rather than pre-recorded gameplay footage. It was definitely reassuring for fans, and it made the anticipation for the Episode to Sky demo that much greater. Thus concludes all the Final Fantasy XV information from Tokyo Game Show 2014, and with that, I would like to end today's episode of the Final Fantasy XV Countdown Retrospective. Thank you for tuning in. Let us know in the comments below what your train of thought was at the time as all of this information came flooding into the internet. And to be further updated on all things Final Fantasy, stay tuned right here on Young Yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Young out!